Hello, hello. This is Susan Regan, and I just wanted to give you another set of ideas around the Summer Star Howard talk that I did this month. And the thing that sticks in my mind the most about this conversation is the thought of the vision for the future. And I talk about this in a different way in terms of the stages of grief and loss when you have gone through a divorce or separation. One thing is, it takes time to get through this, right? So sometimes it takes between 2 and 3 years to actually shift your life. And I often find my clients get really discouraged. They're like, this is taking so long. Not only have I invested so much in my long-term relationship, but I've had to take so long unraveling this relationship. Even if I wanted the separation, the rebuild of your life after a long-term relationship takes a while. So please don't be discouraged and be kind to yourself. And also set up systems so that you can get through this. And systems, by systems, I mean self-care practices that you do every day or practices that you do every day. Sometimes it's practices of exercise or just tuning into your attitude and your perspective on life and noting when it gets off. One of the things I love that Summer Howard said was the idea about keep your vision towards the future. Make all of your decisions about your future. What do you want the next chapter of your life to be like? And then also, she said this brilliant thing, which was really look at your triggers and when you're getting triggered. A lot of folks get triggered and they can't see the future. They might get caught up in this conversation with their ex where they feel like they're back at the beginning. They're just like struggling to try to get them to see their perspective or to just have a healthier communication. So if that is your goal, right, is to just stay in your own lane around your perspective and your own lane around having better communication, then do it yourself. And that might require you to have better boundaries. Summer talked about this whole concept of in her co-parenting relationship, and whether you have kids or not, she talked about her goal was peace, her own inner peace. And sometimes that meant giving up the thing that she wanted. And sometimes that means actually just asking for a few other things that might help the situation, or actually collaborating more than she normally would. Of course, this is different if there's abuse and addiction in your relationship. Then you have to think about this a whole different way, and the boundary setting has to be a little bit more severe. But my question is your vision about your future? That doesn't mean you can't practice being present and in the moment. I think it's great to be in the moment and not in the pain of the past, but keeping your eye on what do you want your future to be like? And Summer and I were talking about this concept of manifestation before we actually recorded the call. And it was pretty funny because what we talked about, we both had been working on our own individual manifestations and our own personal life, and that we were starting to get them to happen. And then we were needing to really take stock of like, oh gosh, do we really like it? What the changes that we wanted to make? Yes. And there's been a lot of changes, right? Especially if some of your separation happened during COVID. There's been a lot of changes, and there'll continue to be changes, but keep touching base with that foundational part of yourself that is that knows who you are no matter what is going on, and that you keep visioning what's the future chapters about and how can you best take care of yourself and prepare yourself. That is my biggest question to you today. Let's think on that together. There was a concept that was so powerful in this conversation, which was the seat of power. So there's triggers, right, when you're getting separated. And some of the triggers could be, well, the main two are who's going to be taking care of the children? And are you going to be raising children the way that you want to and having the kind of time that you want to, which means grieving the time you won't have. And also the whole aspect of money. So the seat of power, in my opinion, can be different in both of those areas. So a lot of times with a primary caretaker, like if there's a stay-at-home parent, that person is in the seat of power with the children because the children are more attached to them. And so there needs to be some conversation that the parent who is not in that position has a lot of asks and proposals for how they want to be with the child, and also to get up to speed. If you haven't been the primary caretaker, you're not the secure-based parent to that child, you're going to have to step in and really work hard to establish a bond with your children and to actually collaborate with their care. If it's money, I want to really understand that aspect with you and for you to do it yourself about, have you given up your power in the seat of in the seat of power around money? Is that your own personal journey that you have to go on? Or is it something that you're going to be just needing to really reestablish some kind of alimony child support so that you can actually cover your basic expenses and then look forward towards your future of how you want to manage things? So the biggest thing is you're responsible for coming to the table during a mediation and to figure out what you want. And also, it's not only what things are going to cost you, but how do you want to live? So it's the cost you means asking for and collaborating more with the other person. This is what mediation is about. Mediation is about two people coming together to make an agreement. There's sort of a range of how you can get divorced, and the range goes from do-it-yourself divorce, where you both are so amiable and you can make these decisions together and you practically do your own divorce. You just need someone to write it up. So you maybe can go to a paralegal or a document server to just really guide you. The second is mediation, where you would have a consulting lawyer because you want to educate yourself on the guiding principles of the law. What does the law say about your particular situation? And how might you use this information to collaborate? Like, I know what my rights are. But that's really different from litigating, from fighting tooth and nail. That means every single decision you have to make in your divorce settlement agreement and your parent settlement agreement can be negotiated, right? So it's fair. The guiding principle of the law is there so that nobody who is socioeconomically different from the other person or are educated differently, no one gets an unfair treatment. So the law is there to protect. So the third option is that both of you get your own lawyers and that your lawyers actually make decisions for you. That's very scary, right? Because that means that their voice is in there more than your voice, especially in terms of negotiation. And guess who lives your divorce? Your kids. This all sounds quite expensive. You can go to court mediators and they will make the same kind of decisions for you, but they don't have as much time to work with you. So you'll have an hour of a discussion and then the decision will be made. And the mediator will tell the judge what they think the decision should be. And most likely that's what the judge chooses. So of course, you may need at times to go to this if you're not able to collaborate. And money is an issue in terms of how you're supporting your decision-making in the area of your separation. But remember, the seat of power is a really important thing to consider, and all the emotions around that are key. Aha. And there's also this one aspect that I really want to bring out about the seat of power, which is this whole idea about, I call it the sixth step of healing from a loss of a relationship. And that is that you really have to take accountability of your part in what happened in your long-term relationship. What was your part? What's that part of your personality that you're like, oh, I should really work on changing that part because that's a difficult part of me. That's my shadow part. That's the hard part for people to get along with. And my hope for you is that you're going to be figuring out during this process, like, how can I have better relationships with people in general? How can I like stand up, be more accountable, work on myself, be more even keeled? Really looking at these aspects of yourself makes you a healthier person in general. But as Summer Howard said, the biggest part is your future. And that's step 7. How are you envisioning your future? What do you want in your life? What's going to make you happy? How do you see the next chapter going? Even if you're raising kids with someone during this next chapter, and it might be a bit challenging for you, how are you going to make it work for you? This is what I want you to focus on. And this is some aspects of this are so important for you to take time to consider. The idea of a divorce team, it sounds so brilliant, right? Of course, why wouldn't you surround yourself with the right kind of support so that you can get through something that's really difficult? Of course, right? So if you're going through a medical issue, right, you're going to be surrounding yourself with support, people that might be able to take care of you, doctors that you trust, other folks that you make decisions with. They might be sort of people that help you advocate for yourself better. You might even have people that like clean your house or buy food for you, or friends friends that keep you upbeat, or people that you can do things with. So remember, like we naturally, when we're in crisis, we put teams of people around each other. That's why I love the idea of like communities. I always am thinking when I hear people going through some kind of family crisis, and there's church folks that are on a committee to bring food to the family, or to do errands, or to do driving. That's normally what happens, right? When there's a medical crisis. But when we're going through a life change, really changing the structure of our families, changing the structure of our life, we have to have a team around us as well to help us through that. And we always, I notice in society that people just are more apt to pay attention to someone who has a cast on their leg than someone that's actually having depression and anxiety. It's like, as human beings, we just turn away from these emotional issues. It's kind of scary to be vulnerable, right? And to be around people who are vulnerable. So that's just one thing to note. Choose your people. Choose the people who will be the 24/7 people you can call. Choose the professionals who you can count on, who can remind you to keep going, and also to give you and educate you about the legal and financial advice that you need, and the emotional advice that you need. One of the things that we talked about is the idea about consistency. And I see this a lot in my practice, which is that people might work on something for a while, and then they might go back into the stages of grief. And the first one is denial. Like they just don't want to work on it anymore. They do the hardest part, which is, I see the hardest part for people going through separation is just physically moving away from each other. And once they do that, they kind of stop doing anything else. And that's really dangerous, because that's almost creating a crisis, like on the way to the road to a crisis. So what would make that change of working on anything else, like your mental health, or establishing a better relationship with your kids, or trying to deal with the legal and financial issues? Why would you stop trying to do that? That means you haven't done the whole rotation of the change. I've seen some clients come back to me after 5 years of divorce, and it's as if it happened yesterday. That's so scary for people. That is so hard to overcome. It's like this big wall you have to climb. So Summer stated it, and I'm stating it too. Be as consistent as possible with the team that you create to help you get through this, because you'll get through it if you continue to do the work. If you've done like a fourth of the work, it's the 3/4 is just sitting there waiting for you to do it. So get your team. If you're feeling like you're resistant, tell your team about it. I can't do this next step. I need to take a break and do some emotional work so I can face this. I'm doing as much as I can. And I say that to people. Do as much as you can tolerate, and get support around the things that you can't tolerate. Some of the changes in your life that feel so difficult. One of the other concepts that I want to just bring out is the idea about success. So Stephen Covey talks about the 7 pillars of success. So we were talking back and forth about what would be the pillars of success for a separation. So of course, it's doing your own emotional work so that you go through your grief process, you know where you're going, and you know when you ricochet backwards. The other is that you keep seeing what you want. Keep seeing the ending of this chapter and the beginning of the next. Stephen Covey talks a lot about that you have to actually look at what you're trying to do and why your success in this particular area is important. So it's almost to me like if you're training for a marathon, right? You want to actually get in the best CrossFit kind of shape that you can, so that no matter what comes up that day, whether you're not feeling so great, the weather's really challenging, that you have the power, the resiliency, the reserve to get through this particular event, physical event. And this is kind of what it's like going through a separation, is building yourself up in all these different areas so that you can get through whatever it is that's about this change, but that it is for something. It's for your future. It's for your vision. It's for your happiness. A lot of my clients say, yeah, but I'm not happy and nothing feels right. And I don't like the life that I'm living. And I don't want this. And I didn't want this. Or I wanted this, but I didn't expect that I was going to lose all these other things when this decision was made. Okay. So you have some work to do. You have to rebuild your base. And you also have to think about what's next for you. What is the kind of life that you want to have? What do you want? What do you want? Maybe you need to ask yourself that every day for a while. And maybe sometimes it's just allowing yourself to, some of my tricks are like having a vision board, really staying focused on your vision. But then also don't forget to smell the roses along the way, because we have many different chapters in our life. And you had probably other parts of your marriage or your long-term relationship that were great. And there's going to be other great times in your life, but you have to be open to them. And you also have to have the reserve to get through this part and enjoy the next part. So I'm so glad that you're listening to my podcast and hearing some of the ideas that I have about recovery from divorce and separation, because I do think you can recover from it. And I believe in you. And I believe that you can have the life that you want, but you just have to keep envisioning it for yourself and being brave enough to have the courage to ask for the right kind of help.